intellectual rock star joining us here today, and you guys paid good money to see him, and he's an incredibly bright man. MIT's Technology Review called him one of the minds to know. If all of you remember his book, The Creative Class, he's going to be here to talk about it and to talk about what our city is doing. Those of you that remember when this was the Space Science Center, and they used to have Genesis and Led Zeppelin at the laser show, we've grown up. And we've grown up pretty darn well, I would say. So, my name is Dave Kelly, and ladies and gentlemen, would you please put your hands together for best-selling author Richard Florida. Come on up here, Richard. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you.
Have a seat. So, Richard, I thought I'd talk first. When the book first came out 10 years ago, you've sort of rewritten the book. It's changed. Our city has changed a bit.
Yeah, but the best thing is this just brought back so many memories of my youth trying to play Led Zeppelin in Genesis, and we would always have like massive feedback. So thank you for that.
We do that.
No, my whole life I wanted to be a rocker. Well, you know, I've been coming to Calgary for over a decade now, and I think all of you know this. You know, you've seen this city really move from a teenager or a tween to a really grown-up, incredibly rich city, and those changes are visible. And I think one of the things that's so amazing is, you know, so many places that have lots and lots of energy, not human energy, natural resource energy, they get lazy. Economists call this the natural resource curse. You can see it in other societies. I mean, one of the amazing things about Calgary is it's taken that money, that natural endowment of energy, and plowed it into building a great cultural environment, a great arts environment, institutions like this, a great knowledge environment. I think it's an example not only for you guys, but for the world.
We're pretty excited, and I would say we're all pretty proud of what our city's done. When you've studied cities, are there anything we can learn from the people that have made mistakes? Are there cities that have gone wrong? You say, okay, if you're going to do one thing, don't do that.
Well, I live in Toronto, and we made sort of a giant mistake and elected Rob Ford. So, you know, cities make mistakes, and cities ebb and flow. But, you know, I think that, and you're going to make mistakes. You know, not everything is going to go smoothly, and hopefully you don't have a Rob Ford in your future. But I think you just move forward. And, you know, the process of city building is building bit by bit, just like building institutions like this, building a great city center, building a great down core, and you go from that.
You've done some work looking at downtowns, and I know one of the things that's funny about our city is we said, okay, we need more people downtown. What ends up happening is the creative class, the ones that make money, end up moving downtown, and then the artists are gone. So what do you do with that?
Well, you know, something really amazing happened at our institute at the University of Toronto. When I first moved to Canada, I had my graduate assistants and my research staff do an analysis of the creative class in Canada's major metropolitan areas. And one day I came in and heard this giant collective gasp from my research people, and they said, you know what, Toronto didn't win. Calgary has a much larger percentage of the creative class, and in fact you were the second highest in all of Canada. And I was saying earlier, when you guys had this incredible article in the New York Times, I'm not sure I agreed with the kind of cowtown stupid headline,
yeah.
but the article was fantastic. And I tweeted that the other day, because I love Twitter, and I said, psst, Calgary has a larger percentage of the creative class than New York City. And I think that really gets to the nub of it, that this knowledge economy, this creative economy, this arts and cultural economy has been growing, but then you have to watch out. Because in places like San Francisco,
yeah.
or parts of lower Manhattan, not all of the New York metro, what's happening is that artists and the culturally creative people who kind of built an exciting city are getting pushed out. And, you know, the best word on this is from my mentor, the great Jane Jacobs, the greatest urbanist ever. When I talked to her back before she passed away, she told me, Richard, you got to watch out for this. When a place gets boring, even the rich people leave. So I think it's something you've got to cultivate and pay a lot of attention to.
What about this building and saying we want to have a contemporary art museum in Calgary? How important are places like this?
Well, we don't have one in Toronto, so you beat us again. And you know, people hem and haw about that. We have the power plant, we have the AGO, and we have a lot of wealthy art collectors. I personally love contemporary art. That's my wife Ron is here. We'll be at Art Basel Miami, and we like to buy young aspiring artists and support the art scene. So for me, and I was on the board of the Warhol Museum when I used to live in Pittsburgh for nearly a decade. I was on the board of the Power Plant, which is the big installation gallery. So for me, arts and culture are the lifeblood. But I think there's another thing. Tom Sokolowski, who was my director at the Andy Warhol Museum, he's now moved on to bigger and better things, always said that, you know, great art isn't just about a great museum. Great art is about supporting living, breathing, artistic communities. And I think you need to do both of those things. You need to celebrate art by having great galleries and museums, but you've also got to invest in that really vibrant art scene, and the two go together.
There are people, isn't that great? There are people in this room who we go to all the same things, don't we? We all recognize each other. We're at the fundraisers because we care about the city, but also because we're part of a certain group that feel like we can have influence. What would you say if you're going to do one thing to have influence in our city to make it great? This is what you should be involved with.
Well, I think, you know, I interviewed your mayor a week ago, who I've known, God, since I wrote Rise in the Creative Class. And his big thing, as you know, is all about engaging people. And I think that's right. The big thing you can do is stay engaged and not give up and keep other people engaged. And I think it's really important to do little things. I mean, we can all sort of understand the big things, but supporting local artists, supporting local musicians, buying stuff from local artists, supporting local musicians and making, you know, a good comparison city at Calgary stage is now Austin, Texas, right? A city that I began studying in the 1990s, about roughly the same size in terms of population. They weren't as big as Toronto, they weren't big as New York, they weren't as big as London, but they made an effort to support Austin arts, Austin music, Austin theater, Austin bookstores, and Austin food, Austin, you know, artistic blah, 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 beer. I think it's doing those things in your day-to-day life. It's making sure that you support all of the things that make a great city, and that means taking a little money out of your billfold and paying for it.
Do you think it's important as people to, it's easy in Calgary to say we want to be international, we want to be on the world stage. Is part of being on the world stage being on a local stage?
But I think you are international and you are on a world stage. And I think the difference I feel here in the past 10 years is palpable. And people know I mean, Calgary, by my estimation, in terms of per capita GDP, is the richest metropolitan area in all of North America. It's richer than the than the Silicon Valley. It's richer than the New York Metro. So you're on the world stage. You're on the world stage as a place that is producing this incredible energy resource, but you're not just about that. And I think that's what the New York Times, you know, blasts to the world. Oh, well, you don't have the full story on Calgary. It's this place that has a depth of knowledge, that's invested in great universities, great arts institutions, great culture, great public art, great all sorts of, you know, street scenes, invigoration. They talked in that article about galleries and shopping. I think those are the things, but I think you guys have to understand that you've already crossed that threshold. You're already there, and now the question is, how do you prepare best for the future?
And how do we answer that then? How do we prepare best?
I think it's your question, Dave, from before. I think as rich as you are, as much money is flowing in here, as people are coming here from opportunity, and a lot of them are doing well, it's how do you make sure that that wealth is shared, that you don't, I just did a report. In fact, I'm going to do it for this, I talked to your mayor about it, I'm going to do it for this place. I did a report last month called The Divided City. I would have never thought to write that report 10 years ago about these divides. But what's happening, of course, is that some of us, knowledge workers, professionals, the creative class is doing well. You know, 250,000 or more people in Calgary, but there's now 45% of your workforce that is in the service class. The people who are giving us drinks and feeding us food, taking care of me in my hotel, to me and Ron in our hotel tonight. We can't afford, now Calgary doesn't have the divide that Toronto has that resulted in Rob Ford. It doesn't have the divide that New York has that caused Bill de Blasio to get elected on a tale of two cities. It doesn't have the divide of London, but you've got to prepare for that. And I think you want to have one city. You know, now we have a new mayor in Toronto, John Tory. That's his major campaign. One Toronto. You're not divided. You're not as divided as those cities, and I think you have to take care to keep that social cohesion and be one city.
How do you do that? How do you not just say, well, if I've got money, I'm going to get more? How do you avoid that?
Well, figuring out that we're not going to live just as a great 5% or 10% or even the 36% of us in Calgary who happen to have the great good fortune to be in the creative class. There's 65 or 4% of people who are out there struggling. working people, people who work in the service class, and making sure that they're paid well and that they have good opportunity and that they can use their, one of the great things about Calgary is that almost everybody's new. So that making sure that people can use their skills, use their creativity to get ahead, and really building a middle class by making sure that people can do work, use their creativity, and be rewarded, whatever they do.
Some people would say, and I know you like to try to link things that other people wouldn't think of linking. How important is a great art scene with a great transit?
Well, I'll take the transit one first. I think we're going through what I call a great reset. I think we're moving away from my parents' world where the key to success was owning your own big-ass McMansion of a house and having your own big boat of an energy-consuming car. I think what people more and more want today is to have time, not to have things, to have experiences. So they want to live closer to the center. They want to live around excitement and energy. They want to live around arts and culture. They want to live around great food and great wine and great coffee. And if they can't afford to live in the center, or they want a slightly bigger place, they want to live around transit. So being in a walkable, engaged, energized community, and then, arts really matters to that. We've done analysis at our institute. What drives economic growth and development? Is it having clusters of industry? Of course. Is it having high-tech advantage? Yes. Is it having skilled people? But you know what? Having a vibrant arts and creative scene adds about as much to your local economy as having really vibrant science and technology clusters. Now you'll hear lots of people talking about the need to have science and technology transfer and venture capital. Very few people tell you that arts and culture and creativity, media design and entertainment add economic value, but they do. So I think it's important for two reasons. One, to raise the quality of life, or what I like to call the quality of place. And two, a vibrant arts and creative scene is a direct economic value adder.
It's actually a driver, because people think, it makes it beautiful, but it's a driver.
No, I mean, you only need to look at the places that are really growing phenomenally and coming back. Why are high-tech companies moving from places like Silicon Valley, out of these suburban office parks or Nerdistans, back to urban San Francisco? Why has Lower Manhattan become one of the $3 billion a year in startups and venture capital? Why is London or Berlin become Europe's two leading centers of high-tech startups? Because they're centers of enterprise and they're centers of culture. And many of the things that go on, I interviewed one of the leading venture capitalists in the world a couple of months ago, Fred Wilson, and he said, 20 years ago, if you had to build high-tech industry, you wanted great engineers. Now you want artists, and moreover, you want people who think like artists. So the whole way that we're going to build new, highly innovative entrepreneurial industries is going to draw, of course, off technology and knowledge work, but also synthesize arts and creativity as well.
Before I let you go, and we're going to have a little chat before the before the auction downstairs. You can tell, you say you can feel an energy now that even wasn't here 10 years ago. What do you attribute the energy to here?
Well, I don't know, can't you? I mean, I can feel it here tonight. It's sort of amazing, it's sort of palpable. I think that energy is built on your economic vibrancy and the luck you had of being in a place where God gave you this incredible gift of natural resource, but you didn't sit on it. You didn't rest on your laurels. You didn't just say, okay, we're going to get fat and lazy. We're going to do something with this money. We're going to plow it into great universities. We're going to plow it into great knowledge industries. We're going to plow it into arts and cultural institutions. Yeah, I mean, when I was first here 10 years ago, I got a white hat, and that was really cool. But it feels like a very different city tonight. And I think you're just on that growth curve. I don't think I think you're on, and that growth curve is likely to be exponential. And what I would say is get ready for a fast and furious ride.
It's so good. We're going to hear more from Richard Ford a little bit later on downstairs. Can we hear it again for Richard Ford?
Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Thanks, everybody.
Pleasure. So good to have you with us here.